Hey, wait! Can you do me a favor and hit that like button so we can reach 1,000 likes for this story? I promise this is a true story. No one believes me, but I can't explain it any other way. When I was 11, my family went camping in the mountains. We stayed in a small, open area deep in the forest, surrounded by trees. Our group included my sister, parents, grandparents, cousins, and some friends with their parents. We had 2 tents and 1 RV. My family slept in 1 tent, with our dogs in a connected section and a toilet tent nearby. Our friend's tent was behind ours, and my grandparents and cousins slept in the RV. There were 12 of us in total. Besides us, there was 1 other RV with a dog and another tent with a couple a few rows down. It was a large campsite, so there was a lot of distance between groups. Our spot was closest to the woods. We could see about 5 feet past the tree line. It was a 2-week trip, and we had 5 days left. It was around 3 a.m., and I was still awake because I had forgotten my insomnia medicine at home and had slept until 2 p.m. that day. I needed to use the bathroom but was too scared to go alone, so I woke my dad. He didn't want to leave the tent but promised to watch from the window until I returned. I grabbed a lamp and went outside to the toilet tent. Once inside, I closed myself in and turned off the lamp to avoid attracting bugs. Not even a minute later, our dogs started barking and growling like crazy. These 2 only barked when someone got too close to the tent or when geese passed by once and scared them. It was late, and I heard no one outside. My dad yelled for them to shut up, but they got louder. Our golden retriever, who wouldn't hurt a fly, barked the scary bark, and our other dog growled like he was ready to attack. It was terrifying. I was scared, but wanted to see if there was something outside I needed to alert my dad about. I opened the tent entrance slightly to peek out. I looked straight into the woods, trying to see if it was an animal, but saw nothing. Then, to the left, something moved behind the trees. Once my eyes focused, I saw this large figure, much bigger than a human at that distance, walking along the tree line. Its arms looked like they were dragging on the ground, and it had a long snout. Its eyes reflected the light from the RV across the way, glowing a scary red color. It had huge antlers and moved almost smoothly, unnaturally, like it was floating. Finally, my dad shouted for the dogs to shut up and opened the side of the tent, letting them run inside. The creature didn't react, but turned and walked back into the woods. As it moved away, the dogs calmed down and stopped barking. It took me 5 minutes to feel my heart beating normally again. My dad asked if I was okay, and I said yes, then went back inside, but I couldn't sleep that night. At breakfast, I told everyone what I saw, but no one believed me. My grandpa said I was probably tired and seeing things or mistook a deer for something else in the dark. After breakfast, the other kids and I went to the tree line where I saw the creature. We found hoof prints and signs of something being dragged. Further into the woods, there was a tree with huge, fresh, unnatural gashes. My grandpa said it was probably a deer rubbing its antlers, but it clearly wasn't. I refused to use the bathroom at night after that and struggled to sleep even more. 2 days later, my friends and I convinced my grandpa to go further into the woods with us. We showed him the marks, but the tracks had faded. Grandpa said it looked like a coyote clawed the tree. As we went deeper, he told us to wait while he went ahead. 5 minutes later, he came back and said we were returning to camp. He told us he found 2 more marked trees and a dead fox. The fox wasn't eaten but had similar marks as the trees and a large portion of its side ripped off and tossed away. He looked disturbed but said it was probably a coyote fight. That's when I knew what I saw was real. After that, I refused to sleep in the tent and stayed in my grandparents' RV. We never camped there again after a couple was found dead 3 weeks later. Since being diagnosed with schizophrenia last year at 18, I've been trying to find the right treatment. It's been tough, with lots of trial and error. Each new medication comes with its own set of benefits and side effects. Some meds seem promising at first, but then fall short, while others help with certain symptoms but cause new problems. It's a constant balancing act, working closely with my psychiatrist to adjust dosages and try different combinations. I know this process takes patience, but it's been really hard. I've had my share of auditory and visual hallucinations and have been in psychosis twice, requiring stays at the Kempsville Center for Behavioral Health. I've heard voices telling me to hurt myself and others, and I've seen hallucinations related to my trauma or completely different things. On July 13th, 2023, I had the craziest hallucination. I'm not very religious. I believe God exists, but I don't worship. That night, I was alone in my quiet, dimly lit room, playing my new favorite game, Resident Evil 4 Remake. The lamp behind me was the only light, casting my silhouette onto the wall in front of me. There was a cross on the wall, hung in the middle, hovering above the ground. At first, everything seemed normal. But then, I noticed something that made my eyes jump. My shadow, which had always mimicked my every move, started to shift on its own. Slowly, it rose from a seated position to a standing one, as if it had a will of its own. My breath caught in my throat, and I broke out in a cold sweat. The room seemed to shrink around me, the familiar walls closing in as the impossible unfolded before my eyes. My mind raced, and fear gripped my chest. The vision appeared suddenly, overwhelming in its intensity. Before my eyes stood a figure that seemed both human and ethereal, radiating a blinding light that filled the space with an otherworldly glow. It was God, or at least, that's what I perceived. Its body was pale white, like a skeleton with skin but no muscles or flesh. The ribcage was too large for its body, and its hands were big and long with pitch-black nails. It was tall, and when I looked at its face, it was horrifying, otherworldly, and haunting. Its teeth were painted white, and black saliva dripped from its enlarged mouth. Its eyes were deep and unyielding, looking directly into my soul. I felt unreal, like every other emotion was drained from my body, leaving only fear. I couldn't move or make a sound. A Bible verse echoed in my mind, Exodus 33 verse 20, "You cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live." The face was both majestic and terrifying, stripping away the essence of my being. I felt like my soul was being wrenched from my body, the overwhelming fear tightening its hold on my heart. Every instinct screamed that this vision was a prelude to my end, and I was paralyzed, unable to look away. The eyes held nothing and everything. I can still picture those eyes in my mind. If I could draw, I'd show how frightening they were. Time seemed to fly by. Then, suddenly, I moved and fell out of my chair. The cross that had been on the wall was in my hands. I don't remember grabbing it. When I looked back at the wall, the being had vanished, and my shadow was once again mimicking my movements. I questioned everything, my reality, my life, my mind. I curled up in a ball and cried, hoping it was just a nightmare or another hallucination due to my schizophrenia. Part of me believes it was a hallucination, another part believes it was real. That could be due to my delusional thinking, but I'm not sure. After that, I had to move out of my grandmother's house and stay with my aunt. I will never crowd myself near anything related to it. I will never look at the skies or the heavens the same way again. I never discussed this with anyone at the time. I don't have friends to talk about it with, and I only communicate with my mother and my psychiatrist. But yeah, that's it. I finally talked about this publicly. If anyone has any questions or coping mechanisms for dealing with hallucinations, feel free to share. I've always just frozen up and let these things happen. Either way, thanks for your time.